If you've ever watched a bossing ladder before, you've probably sat there while someone lists every single boss in the game just to tell you half of them are useless. So we're not doing that. This is the only bossing ladder you actually need. No filler, no dead content, just the bosses that actually make you better at the game and, more importantly, why they matter. Jagex actually fixed a lot of major issues with the early to end game progression, they just haven't made it obvious. So that's exactly what we're doing today, showing you the path from a fresh account all the way to end game PVM. Brutus is the first boss a fresh account should be tackling, and honestly, it's one of the best additions they've made in years. It's super accessible, takes basically no gear, and introduces you to one of the most important PVM skills straight away: movement. You've only got two things to worry about here: stepping back and sidestepping. It sounds extremely simple, and it is, but these are mechanics that you'll use for the rest of your PVM journey. You'll need to complete the Ides of Milk quest to fight him, but get that done and you can literally roll up at the Lumbridge cow pen with a mithril scimitar and get exposure to real PVM mechanics within your first few hours of playing. He drops the Maletta, a great early game offensive shield slot item. He's pretty decent prayer XP. And he drops steaks. These are a genuinely good food source for both Brutus and some of the early game bosses coming up. Before this, most worthwhile bosses needed protection prayers and half decent gear, so new players were just locked out. This boss fixes that and really jumpstarts the journey for a completely fresh player. He gives you that first taste of PVM early and makes everything later much easier to learn. The next step up the ladder is Scurrius. Nothing too crazy, but definitely a step up. You can find him in Varrock sewers. Unlike Brutus, you can't show up butt naked straight off the boat. 43 prayer for protection prayers and some very basic gear though will do the job. This boss is insane for early combat XP, especially if you get really lucky with the Scurrius spine drops. You can make these into rat-bane weapons, the best weapon in the game if you're attacking a rat, or you can trade them into the bloke outside for decent XP. More importantly though, it's going to teach you a lot of the foundational skills that you need. I always joke that Old School RuneScape only has two real mechanics: don't stand in a shit on the floor and use the right prayer at the right time. This boss will get you practicing both. The falling debris that you need to avoid gives you time to react and doesn't hit too hard. You'll see this kind of mechanic again and again later. It's the perfect introduction to this style of attack. You're also dealing with your first proper prayer switching. For most normal monsters, you can just camp one prayer and avoid all damage. Bosses often use multiple styles that you'll need to switch between. On top of that, you've got some extra spawns to manage, so you won't just be tunnel visioning the boss anymore. If you pick up a rat-bane weapon here, things get even better. You start learning about one-ticking, which is basically attacking the next target instantly with no delay. This is only possible in certain situations. There's some nice quality of life here. You can eat the cheese around the arena. This lets you stay for longer trips and reduces the amount you're spending on food. That said, it's not the most Iron Man or budget friendly boss long term, since you'll burn through prayer potions pretty quickly. Not the most accessible resource in the early game. Luckily, there is an altar just outside that you can use to recharge. Scurrius is an important stop on the journey. If you can learn to kill him perfectly, you're genuinely more prepared for mid-game content than you think. Next up is Amoxliatl. It's pretty easy to think of her as Scurrius but different, but she has some twists on the basic mechanics that are definitely worth exposing yourself to. She's in Varlamore and you need the Heart of Darkness completed to get started with her. A lot of the fundamentals are the same. You're still dealing with movement and still have to pay attention to your prayers. The big difference here is that our prayers can get disabled. So you're not just reacting to attacks and switching, you have to notice when they get turned off and turn them back on. That might sound small, but this is another mechanic you'll see pop up time and time again. You'll also have a slightly different flavour of avoiding the shit on the floor. Instead of random stuff appearing and falling everywhere, this time she actually targets you and leaves permanent danger tiles. So now you actually have to think about where you're standing. This is your first exposure to something completely new. In some encounters, planning for the future matters. You don't want to back yourself into a corner and block off too much of the area. She also drops something that's genuinely useful long term, the Pendant of 80s along with the tears that power it. If you're planning on spending any real time in Valimor later on, and to be honest, you should be, this thing is basically essential for getting around efficiently. Even if you think you're a PvM pro, it's worth stopping off here. Here's a few extra early game mentions. They're not as crucial if you're thinking about this ladder purely from a skills progression perspective, but they are worth doing for other reasons. The Barrows brothers are super easy money and basically essential for Iron Men. You don't need much, just air spells and 43 prayer. If you want a few mil an hour with basically zero effort, this is it. It's a great way to build out your account with gear for the bosses that we're tackling next. The Fight Caves gives you your best melee cape right up until the endgame and is an iconic and rewarding challenge. Scurrius prepares you for this more than you realise. It's definitely an awesome goal to have. For me, getting the fire cape is the true start of the mid game. Once you've got the fire cape, it's time to start thinking about gear switching and more advanced mechanics. This is where the ladder starts to really open up. Everything after this section is a real boss with genuinely valuable rewards. I've got guides for all of the bosses on this list, so if you want to watch them, hit that subscribe button so you can find them easily. I break down the fights and keep things simple, giving you all the tips you need with none of the fluff. Whilst you're down there, I'd really appreciate if you'd hit the like button. It really helps these videos reach the people who need them the most. Thank you very much. Next up is Perilous Moons, and at this point you are firmly in the mid game. You'll actually be tackling 3 bosses here, the Blood Moon, Blue Moon and Eclipse Moon. You'll need to complete the Perilous Moons quest to get started. They're in the dwarven city of Cantorum in Valimor. Before we even get into the mechanics, there's a few things that make this content so good. First off, it's super accessible. You don't need expensive strength boosting gear here. In fact, because of how some of the mechanics work, bringing something a bit tankier and cheaper, like Barrow's armor, is actually the better option. It's made even more affordable by something else. All of your supplies are provided inside the boss area, so you're not burning through expensive food and potions on every attempt. As long as you don't die, it basically costs you nothing to be here. Now, in terms of mechanics, this is where movement really gets drilled into you. You don't need to worry about prayers at all here. Protection prayers straight up don't work. So instead of juggling 10 things at once, you can really focus on one skill, movement. And trust me, here, that's more than enough. You'll get exposure to pretty much everything. Dodging moving obstacles, step back mechanics, using cover, and of course, avoiding the shit on the floor. It's all the stuff newer players struggle with, things that do start to get a bit harder here. But nothing's going to one-shot you. You can eat through most mistakes and just keep going. On top of that, there's some dry protection, so even if your luck is terrible, you're probably going to make some decent money here if you stick at it for a little while. This is one of the best places in the game to just sit down, get comfortable and build confidence without getting punished too hard. Next up is the Royal Titans. They introduce one of the most important skills in all of PvM. I said earlier there are only 2, I lied, there's 3. Gear switching. You'll find them in the Asgarnia Ice Dungeon. Up until now, you've mostly been sticking to one combat style at a time, but here you'll need to start switching your gear depending on what's going on. You'll likely be bringing switches for all 3 styles. This isn't just some niche mechanic, this is used everywhere, especially once you start getting into raids. The gear you've hopefully picked up from Moons is actually perfect for this, so there's a really natural progression here. Obviously, there are other mechanics to deal with too, but the gear switching is the main focus here. We've done prayers and we've done movement, switching is that third piece of the puzzle. On top of that, you'll also be unlocking some mid-game prayers like Mystic, Vigor and Deadeye, and these are genuinely game-changing. They're not as good as Rigor or Augury, but they're free, so you really can't say no. Titans can also be done as a solo or a duo. Doing it with a friend is the way to go, especially when you're starting out. It might feel a bit clunky at first, messing around with switches mid-fight, but getting comfortable with this now will make everything later on feel so much easier. Another great boss to brush up on all of the skills we've learned so far is the Hueycoatl. If you've already done the previous bosses on this list, at first glance, Huey doesn't really offer anything new. It's going to teach you something a bit less specific, but arguably just as valuable as your individual skills, if you engage with the content in the right way. The real value at Huey is not the individual skills you can brush up on, it's your teamwork. You can do this boss solo or in a mass world, but in a small group, you can really start communicating and engaging with the prayer management pillar charging mechanic. It seems like such a minor thing, and to be fair, getting this mechanic right at Huey is only a minor DPS boost, but getting used to communicating and working as a team is something you'll need to do if you ever want to raid later down the line. You'll also get your first introduction to an important movement mechanic that's going to pop up again later, wave skipping. Mastering this here will save you plenty of GP later down the line. Once you've mastered the Moons of Peril, Titans and Hueycoatl, you're ready for those first steps into some genuinely tough content. But there's no need to rush through it all. If you've made it to this point in the ladder, it's safe to say you're not a noob anymore. There are dozens of bosses available to you at this point. Here's some extra ones that you can try. They aren't essential, but depending on your goals and playstyle, they're definitely worth considering. The wilderness bosses let you put a lot of the basics that you've mastered into practice and make a crazy amount of money at the same time. This isn't for everyone. Dealing with PKs can be a bit of a pain in the arse, but you can do these bosses with some pretty low risk setups. If you want to do something a bit more social, you can send the multi-combat versions. It reduces the risk too. Let's be real, some of the newer releases have made most of God Wars Dungeon optional, but it's still a good one to tackle with a group. Some of the most fun I've had is rocking up to Bandos and absolutely annihilating him with the clan. GP, XP and learning potential aren't the only metrics that matter. Having fun is important too. Remember, we're playing a game. Next on the ladder is the Tombs of Amascut. If you've made it this far, you're one of the big boys. This is your first raid. 5 bosses, Baba, Kefri, Akka, Zebak and the Wardens. And some extremely fun and engaging puzzle rooms. You'll need to complete Beneath Cursed Sands to get access, but once you're in, this is hands down one of the best pieces of content in the game for truly mastering PvM. The biggest reason, you can scale the difficulty yourself. With the invocation system, you start off easy and gradually turn things up as you get more comfortable. The best part about all of this is there's no cost if you die. You can just send attempts, mess things up, learn from it and go again without worrying about your bank slowly disappearing. Being a raid, there are multiple bosses. The unique thing about TOA is that you get to choose which order to tackle them in, meaning you don't have to defeat all of the bosses you already know how to do to start trying to learn a new one. You can also do this solo or in a group, so if you're worried about embarrassing yourself in front of others, you can just learn everything on your own first and bring all of that knowledge into teams later. This is the point in the game where you go from having a rough grasp of the basics to genuinely understanding the game. You're using everything now. Movement, prayer switching, gear switching, positioning, decision making and teamwork all at once in a pretty unforgiving environment. On top of that, there's a genuinely important untradeable upgrade here. The Thread of Elidness lets you upgrade your rune pouch, which becomes insanely useful once you start doing harder PvM. I've put Tombs of Amascut at the start of the late game. But let's be real, a 0 invocation raid is mid-game content, and a 600 is some of the hardest content in the game. This is a place that you'll be revisiting for the rest of your account. Even without the drops, this is the content that takes you from the mid-game to properly end-game ready. Next up is the Gauntlet, and this is where the game strips everything back. It's a true test of skill and game knowledge. You can't use your mum's credit card to cheese it here by buying best in slot gear with bonds because you're going in butt naked. You'll need to complete Song of the Elves to get access, a quest with some pretty tough requirements. Everything you're going to use, you have to make inside. Now, I'm not gonna lie, the prep phase in my opinion is borderline torture. Running around collecting resources, making food and potions, crafting your gear, it's basically skilling, and skilling is for nerds. But hear me out, the Hunlef fight itself is some of the best PvM content in the game. It's fast, it's punishing, and it forces you to actually be good. Like Tombs of Amascut, you're managing movement, prayer switching, positioning. You are dealing with literally everything all at the same time, but unlike a low-level Tombs of Amascut, the attacks are unforgiving, and you waste like 10 minutes of prep time if you die. If you don't get one shot, too many mistakes can easily make you simply run out of supplies. Regular Gauntlet isn't the most rewarding, but it's a really good way to ease yourself in and get yourself comfortable before stepping up to the Corrupted Gauntlet. That's where things get serious. It's tough, but it's also some of the most consistent money in the game and one of the best ways to prove to yourself that you've actually improved as a player. If you can do CG comfortably, you're in a very good spot. We've got 2 extra late game mentions here. They're not as important to grind as they used to be, but you should definitely learn them for the unique untradables that they drop. Hueycoatl is another great boss for consistent GP. The mechanics aren't too hard, but one mistake here is basically a guaranteed KO. The real reason you want to come here though is for the Hueycoatl head, allowing you to upgrade your Ava's device to an Ava's assembler, the best in slot range cape until you get Dizana's quiver at the Colosseum. The Phantom Muspa is the other one. It's another great boss with loads of varied mechanics and even some unique stuff with the Smite phase. I won't go into detail, check out my guide if you want to know more, but the reason to come here is the Ancient Icon. Upgrading your Ancient Staff into an Ancient Scepter, this item can be super useful for some endgame level stuff, especially in budget friendly setups. And it can be upgraded further in the bosses we're talking about next. Now, we've got all the Desert Treasure 2 bosses. You don't need to lock into one of these or even do them all. You've got so much choice here depending on the gear investments that you've made. It's really common to get to this point in the game and realise you've massively biased your account towards one combat style. I know I did. I was the noob running around in full bandos for melee and black dragonhide for ranged. That's exactly where these bosses come in. You don't have to be good at everything here, you can just lean into whatever your account is best at. If you've gone all in on Mage, Whisperer is your play. If you're a ranged enjoyer, you'll be looking at Leviathan. And if you're focused on melee, you're kinda spoiled for choice. Duke and Vardorvis are both solid options. These bosses aren't the most consistent money, but the uniques are big and more importantly, they teach you a lot. You're probably getting tired of me saying that, but it is more important than straight up GP per hour. You'll also get the gems to upgrade your Ancient Scepter here. The Blood and Ice gems specifically are super useful as some endgame content. I use them at the Theatre of Blood and the Colosseum. In terms of how they actually feel to do, Duke is the most chill. Once you get into the rhythm, you can almost switch your brain off and just flow through kills. Leviathan and Vardorvis are the complete opposite. Fast, chaotic, and pretty intense. Really fun, but maybe not something you want to grind for 6 hours straight unless you genuinely hate yourself. And then there's the Whisperer. Honestly, she's fine, I guess. Not my favourite, but not bad. This is one of those points in the ladder where you start shaping your own path a bit more, picking content that suits your account while still pushing up your skill level. We've already talked about TOA, Royal Titans, and Hueycoatl being group content, and the next 2 things on this list are definitely best enjoyed with other players. If you're looking for a friendly community focused on helping each other progress through the game and tackle new content, check out my Discord server and in-game clan. The link is in the video description. Yama is one boss, but there are a few ways to tackle him depending on your gear and ability level. He's located in the Chasm of Fire and requires a Kingdom Divided. For most players, duo with a buddy is the way to go. Mage only setups are genuinely chill and fun, and soloing it is totally possible. If you're chasing peak efficiency, you're gonna need to learn the melee methods, and that's where things get sweaty. Personally, I'm not quite there yet, so I can't speak from experience, but it does look like a fun and rewarding skill to master. If you're like me and you're happy to do mage only, the Purging Staff makes this content crazy good, even if the rest of your gear is crap. Mechanically, you're used to hearing me say, don't stand in the shit on the floor by now. Well, for Yama, do stand in the shit on the floor, but only at the right time. This guy's main mechanic involves standing on some demonic glyphs that nullify his special attacks. He's also got a fairly unique agility stepping stone phase. It's not proper PvM, but it's great practice for one-ticking, just like the rats at Scurrius earlier. We mentioned the wave skip at Hueycoatl. This is the boss where you really need to nail that skill. It's a massive part of the entire fight regardless of your combat style. At this point in your journey, any boss we take on has got you doing pretty much everything. You're not a Grandmaster yet, but you need to be competent with most stuff to get Yama done, and if you aren't, he'll teach you fast. What makes this fight really satisfying is the way you can choose to do it the easy way and get by, but you can choose to push yourself by taking it on solo, learning the melee methods, and squeezing in extra little optimizations. If you're sticking to mage only, it's actually insane XP too. You're leveling whilst you're learning the fight. You also unlock double death charge here, not something I'm good enough to get much use out of, but it's important for the top tier gamers amongst us. This boss is a genuine money printer, it's definitely worth grinding out. Yama is one of those fights that really shows you how far you've come. The final piece of group content on this list, and honestly, the funnest, most rewarding and hardest to master. I am of course talking about the Chambers of Serik. I'm just kidding, it's the Theatre of Blood. It's located in Mauritania and you're tackling 6 bosses in a row. Maiden, Bloat, Nilos, Sotazeg, Zarpus and Verzik. Unlike TOA, which is flexible and can be done in any order, TOB is a traditional boss rush, similar to what you'd see in other MMOs. Same bosses, same order, every time. That makes it harder to learn because there's no skipping ahead or experimenting mid-raid. Also, unlike TOA, you're a lot more reliant on working as a team instead of just getting by with individual execution. Teamwork is the name of the game here. Everyone has roles, everyone needs to communicate, and if someone slips up, you're probably trolling your whole group. The best example is the first room at the Maiden of Sugadinti. If your Freezer cocks up, you're probably gonna wipe. That said, getting through a top is easier than most people expect. I cover the simplest, most budget-friendly approach in my guide, and that is more than enough to have fun and get some loot. Half the gear is just full void. It's a bit of a grind, but it's nothing that's gonna break your bank. With the crazy money you can make using it at Tob, and the next boss on this list, getting Elite Void is worth your time. Where Tob really shines is the opportunities for creativity and optimization. Once you're comfortable with the basics, there are almost infinite ways to shave off time, boost your DPS and make your runs generally more efficient. People have come up with some seriously clever stuff that's way too big brain for me to even understand yet, let alone attempt to explain to you. But the best part is, you don't need to know any of the sweaty stuff to enjoy it. Master the basics, have fun, get your loot, and learn as you go. This next one is the best money in the game right now. I'm talking about the Doom of Mokhaiotl. You'll need to complete the final Dawn to get access, and you'll find him out in the Talati Rainforest. Gear-wise, it's actually pretty approachable. Elite Void carries a lot of the load here, and realistically the only big purchase you're looking at is a Tormented Synapse for the Scorching Bow. It's not as cheap as it used to be, but by this point in the ladder, you should have the bank for it, and if you already picked one up for a Purging Staff at Yama, you can just dismantle it and reuse it. Mechanically, this boss has you doing a bit of everything. I'm not going to list it all, you're familiar by now. But what really makes it stand out is the delve system. You start off at level 1 with minimal mechanics. It's genuinely pretty easy. But you can keep pushing deeper and deeper, scaling the difficulty as far as you're comfortable, and cashing out whenever you want. That makes it one of the best bosses in the game for learning at your own pace. Like a lot of content at this level, you can get by just knowing the basics. But once you start layering in small optimizations, it turns what feels like a chaotic fight into something way more controlled and repeatable. Just like Tob, there's a whole sweaty side to this boss that I'm still learning myself, but even without that, this is probably my favourite boss in the game right now, and yeah, the ridiculous GP I've made here has definitely helped. Speaking of cashing out early, the final piece of content on this list is the Fortis Colosseum over in Varlamore. This is 11 waves of increasingly difficult enemies, finishing with a proper boss fight against Soul Heredit. The big reward here is Designer's Quiver, the best in-slot ranged cape. But you can also make some pretty decent money from the common and unique drops as you go. Just like Doom, like I said, you can cash out whenever you want. Now, this might be a hot take, but I actually think this is a more important grind than the Inferno. Feel free to call me out, I haven't completed either yet, but hear me out first. They're both wave based. They both require everything we've talked about so far. Movement, prayer, switching, whatever. They also introduce some deeper mechanics. Things like line of sight, pathing, off-ticking, stuff we haven't really touched on yet, but become essential here. So why the Colosseum first? Because it's just way more approachable. You don't need to commit hours for a single run, and you're actually making money whilst you learn. The Inferno is still the iconic challenge, and yeah, the Infernal Cape is the best melee cape in the game. But for most players, starting here just makes more sense. This is content I'm deep into learning right now. I'm 140 deaths in at the time of recording, so if you want to watch me suffer live, come and check me out on Twitch. Even after all of those deaths, I am still loving it. If you can handle the Colosseum, I think you can handle pretty much anything this game throws at you. The rest of the true endgame stuff isn't specific bosses. Combat achievements are great ways to practice and demonstrate your mastery of content you already have experience in. There are loads of tough challenges that provide awesome cosmetics if you really want to flex on the plebs. I'm talking about all of the cool stuff from TOA, Radiant Oathplate from Yama, Blorva from the Awakened DT2 bosses. You're probably going to be in max gear by the time you're tackling this stuff. Even when you're decked out in the top tier drip, there is still so much to do in this game. You've got a full progression system from total noob to sweaty raider now, so look back at where you are on the list and get started. You should have your route to the endgame all planned out. And as always, if you need any tips or advice, just shout in the comments or join the Discord server. Massive shout out to my YouTube channel members and Twitch subscribers. I'm not going to bullshit you and pretend you're getting anything massively valuable. You're not, but your support does help me out. Twitch subscribers get ad-free access to my streams, and YouTube members get access to all of the recordings. If you want to watch me embarrass myself learning new content without rude interruptions from Jeff Bezos, then you know what to do. That's it from me. Thanks for sticking around. I'll see you next time.